Simon, welcome to the Zero Edge. It's a pleasure to have you on today. As we do with all of our guests, I'm just going to ask you to start by giving us a brief introduction to you, who you are as a trader, and what your background is in the industry.
All right. Thanks for having me, Kieran and Darwinex. Let me have a brief introduction of myself. My name is Simon, and I'm from Malaysia. I've been a trader for more than 5 years, so I have a 5 years of trading experience in trading CFD, uh, and also a variety of products such as US stocks and also cryptocurrencies. Yeah. So I've
What
been
do,
trading
what
with Darwinex for like maybe 9 months. Yeah, I think this month will be the ninth month.
yeah. And what did you start with out of those different asset classes? Like what was your introduction to the markets?
I've actually started with if I'm my very first traded product was actually Euro USD. Yeah, I can still
Oh, really?
recall.
It's strange because usually what you find, for the most part, is people are introduced via a different asset class, usually crypto or stocks, and then they eventually move into FX or futures trading. Like it's like a gradual step. You say that yours was
Mhm.
your first trade was on euro dollar. So how did that come about? Like how did you hear about trading? I'm presuming there's not a massive from previous conversations that I've had. I'm presuming there's not a massive trading space or trading industry in Malaysia, but is that correct me if I'm wrong? Like, how did you hear about trading?
Yeah, so when I first started, because I guess everybody started from somewhere, and I started from YouTube. So there was just one random day I was just scrolling through YouTube, then I saw this huge banner saying like how do you make $1,000 in 5 minutes? So I clicked into it, and this random YouTuber was streaming like saying you go to this MT5, MT4, whatever, then you place a trade, then just wait for 5 minutes, and boom, 1,000 comes into your bank account. That's how I started. But before I actually started like getting myself a first CFD trading account, I actually done had my research with stocks. But as I started researching to stocks, I found out that we need a larger sum of capital. I think
Mhm.
that's what most of the people who's interested, they will actually be stuck with this stage because most of them wouldn't have any large sum of capital, where they have only limited capital to start with. Hence, that's why I started with CFD as well.
Yeah, because that's a problem, isn't it? I mean, with futures as well, is that you generally need quite a bit of margin to put up front. Whereas with CFDs and even like using leverage in crypto, if you're trading through a crypto exchange, you generally can start with quite a small amount of money. Is that Is that right? Probably not. Like it takes advantage of those guys who don't have a lot of capital, but it is like it's a more friendlier introduction to the industry, right? Where you don't have to invest kind of so much money. So how long ago was that? When was your when did this come about? Like when was your first introduction to trading?
Mm, 5 years ago, to be exact.
Okay. So 5 years ago was your first ever trade, and then now we fast forward to current day, and you're in DarwinIA Gold, right? Which for anybody who is watching and doesn't quite understand 100% what the DarwinIA program is it's a monthly competition or a monthly leaderboard with every single client at Darwinex and Darwinex Zero. And we basically give out Darwinia allocations with monthly seed capital to our traders depending on which program they're in. Every trader is in silver, and only kind of the highest caliber traders get through to gold because there's performance objectives that you have to hit. For example, you need a track record of 8+ months. So, a minimum track record of 8 months. You need a performance or return of 20% with a minimum return to drawdown ratio of 2.5 to 1. So, that's not a small feat, yet you've achieved that. So talk to me like that 5 year period. What were some of the key lessons that you learned? Because 5 years sounds like a long time, but it's really not. So it's an amazing feat. Well done to you. But talk to me about some of the lessons that you've had over the years, from beginner lessons to even now where you're scaling up and you're starting to see the fruits of your labor pay off.
Yeah. So one of the key thing I've learned throughout the years are um, I would say patience. Yeah, you gotta be patient. Like I can still recall that when I first started trading for the first few years, all I think of is how do I actually get a huge bag of profit, right? It's like how do I actually, let's say I started with 100 USD trading account. I always think of, like, let's say I'm in January right now. I always think of, like, by 31st of January, how do I actually flip my account from 100 to maybe 1,000 or 2,000? Yeah, just to, like, fulfill my self satisfaction, or just to flip my account. I actually remember that I managed to flip my account, like the so-called flip account, right? I flipped it like maybe like several times, and it actually boosted my ego, right? So when my ego grown bigger, I found out that I was trading recklessly. Like, I tried several like the holy grail strategy advertised on YouTube or Google, saying like the Martingale, right? All the layerings. It actually rewarded me initially, but at some point it just went disastrous. Like my psychology went totally breakdown, right? And going back to what Kieran asked, um what did I actually learn other than that? It's actually the main reason of me actually how did I actually get to know about Darwinex, right? It's actually through a YouTuber. I'm not sure if Kieran know about. It's Raihan, the Euro trader. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I actually got to know his community. Then I actually discovered about Darwinex. So credits to him, right? So through these 8 months trading with Darwinex, the most important lesson I've learned is do you want to actually stay in this game for a long term, or it's just a short term violent profit, right? Like compared to prop firm trading. Because if you're looking for a long term game and you're looking to manage several millions, right, or even 10 millions, like number one spot in Darwinex THA, right, is managing multiple millions. So if you're looking for investors to invest in your portfolio, like, right, Darwinex is the way to go, definitely.
I actually know Ryan. He's a friend of mine, and it's great to see. Because you're in his tribe, right? You're on his leaderboard. And I actually messaged him just before we jumped on this, just saying that I'm interviewing another one of his tribe members, because I interviewed Colin recently, who owns TVTA, and now you're the. I think I've interviewed one or two people in between, but it's great to see so many good people coming through, partners like Raihan. So yeah, full credit to Raihan there. Now you spoke about Martingale. Did you was you Martingale in a personal account before you kind of took it serious and realized that Martingale isn't the Holy Grail system?
Martingale is the worst, man. Trust me, Martingale is the worst. Yeah, it screws your mindset, it screws your wallet, it screws everything. Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
for beginners, just don't go for it.
I think the issue with Martingale is that it, it can work if you're running at really low risk and you give yourself enough breathing room to go into significant drawdowns and let it work out of that drawdown. However, that then produces such a small return that it's not worth it. So what people generally do is they go, well, that return isn't good enough. So what I'm going to do is I'll increase the risk, and then they see the daily fluctuations is nothing, and then all of a sudden you might be a year in and your account gets blown like like just out of nowhere. And that's a problem with Martingale. So it's always better to find your own edge and to figure out a way. And I mean, the majority of hedge funds I've spoken to in the past, or wealth managers, the first question that they always ask is, and do you trade with a stop? Or do you have a FIFO strategy, which is first in, first out, i.e. you don't enter another trade in that specific direction? So it's kind of known in the professional space that martingaling is not a viable strategy. And yet still to this day, so many people try and implement it as a foolproof way to beat the market, so, which doesn't really work with Darwinex, because our risk engine kind of counteracts that, because our risk engine is trying to stabilize your exposure, whereas Martingale is working in completely the opposite direction. The more drawdown you go into, the more exposure it's going to take. So I've been a victim of thinking Martingale was the holy grail as well. I'm pretty sure 90% of traders have. And it's a tough lesson to learn, but at the end of the day, we're still both here, and that's the main thing. So how how did you initially make that transition to knowing nothing about the markets? You know, you stumbled across a YouTube video 5 years ago, you see something. What was your first step? Like, how did you go from knowing nothing to all of a sudden placing a euro dollar trade to then being Simon 5 years on, who's got a 9 month long track record? You're in DarwinIA Gold. Like, how did that pan out?
Yeah, so I actually started like I guess I had the same pathway as most of them. So I started learning from YouTube, which is a self-learn,
Hmm.
and I found out the results weren't promising. And but what so we I had a lot of setbacks, to be honest. Like I had to fund in my account from time to time it's because I don't have a consistent strategy. I don't have a consistent mindset, right? So for the first 2 years, I was just stumbling up and down.
Hmm.
I was like trying to go changing from strategies to maybe some SOPs, or even going to some purchasing some different online courses, right?
Hmm.
So I'm not sure this thing is a hit in the UK, but in Malaysia we have like like what you mentioned earlier. Um, Trading is not popular in Malaysia, hence it's difficult to find like a true mentor, or some at least someone to guide you. But I think it's like during 2021, 2021 or 2022, right? And I found this Chinese guy, and I'm also Chinese, right? This Chinese guy who lives in Malaysia as well, and he teaches indices trading. So it's also CFD trading, and that's where I actually decided to like, okay, let's get this business serious. Like I know I can't actually learn myself through YouTube. So I think maybe someone who has done it can actually guide me. So I came to this guy. His name is Wei Xing, and yeah, I started learning from him like the supply demands, and understanding what's indices, what's CFD truly is. Then from there, I actually uh, see my result starting from red turning to green.
So would you say that that was the kind of turning point in your journey or your career, is when you actually found a mentor?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, that's interesting because it's so difficult to find. Like, it feels like these days everybody's a mentor, whether you're qualified or not to be one. It just seems like everybody's a mentor. And I'm actually a huge proponent of trading education. I think it's fantastic and it's needed because it's so difficult, but there needs to be some vetting process as to who becomes a mentor. There has to be some accountability. Like, you either need a track record or you need a qualification. You need something to be able to say, I should be teaching people how to trade. So it's interesting because I always think if you hit the right mentor that is able to teach you, because I also think there's learning styles involved. Like, not every mentor can teach every person and vice versa. The fact that you found a mentor and, that was your turning point it's kind of like you struck the jackpot, right? You can't ask for anything else. And so from that point on, do you still trade in a very similar way, or have things evolved over the years? Because you say that was what, 2021, 2022? We're now 3 years on from that, 4 years on. Do you still trade in the exact same way, or is it kind of evolved over the years?
Yeah, I still use the framework he teaches me, but it's just that I've improvised them. Like for example, he teaches supply demand, but I'm still using supply demand, but I combine it with market structure, and like what I mentioned yesterday, the COT reports. Yeah,
Mhm.
so basically an improvement of what he taught from the framework.
Yeah. So you've taken his initial ideas or teachings and framed it to, your own unique approach.
Exactly.
Which I think is I think it's important to do. A, because you never truly know whether somebody's profitable unless they've got a track record. So you kind of have to figure things out, I think, to a degree for yourself. But also I always say to people, you have to have an edge that is 100% unique. So only you understand it. It might be based on concepts somebody else has taught, but it needs to be solely unique to you, because when things are hard or when you have a difficult decision to make, you need to be able to make that decision inherently. If you've learned a strategy from somebody else and you haven't built that strategy or collected the data or what have you, when it comes to, I don't know, a drawdown period or making an adjustment or closing a trade early, whatever the difficult decision is that you have to make, you need to make it yourself. You can't go run into a mentor or a friend and say, what should I do with this trade? I'm in drawdown. Like, that's, that's not being a trader. And so I think to internalize that process, you have to sort of make your strategy a little bit unique to you so that you are the expert in your trading system, right? So what assets are you trading right now? Like, you said that he first taught you the difference between CFDs and indices. Like, what is your main expertise in these days?
Yeah, I started like what I shared just now. I started with the Euro USD, and moving
Mhm,
forward, we have the indices like the Dow Jones, the Nasdaq. Then until now, like let's say going back to 8 months earlier, like when I first started Darwinex, I actually started trading with currencies. Most of them are
mhm.
currencies, and sometimes I trade German DAX and also maybe Nasdaq. Yeah, and now when I'm in gold, I started. I think I got into gold like during June, right? During June, so I actually took only like one or two trades, which is currencies and
Mhm.
also U.S. stocks. It's because I'm more of a swing trader myself. Hence, I won't have too many setups in a month, right? So I think I ended my July ranking at 100 plus ranking. Yeah, but I think it's fine. I ended with a negative 0.2% for June as of my return.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I'm actually
Yeah,
still holding my swing positions right now.
I mean, to be completely honest, I've got your record on the screen here. February to May, I was actually saying this to one of my friends this morning. I think February to May has been the most difficult market conditions that I've ever experienced personally. Um, and that's kind of corroborated with a lot of the performance that we've seen at Darwinex. Like, a lot of traders have struggled in the past 6 months, but specifically between February and May. And only now we've seen traders turn it around in June. What's really interesting is that you actually outperformed during that period. Like, you had a fantastic February, March was great, April was great, May was great. So do you benefit from kind of higher volatility conditions? I guess if you're swing trading, it gets you to your targets faster. But what's your preferred kind of market condition?
Um, because I do swing trading, and what my preferred trading environment is, I do both. Actually, I do trending market and also reversal. Yeah.
Hmm.
So like what we had during April and May, right? It's because I if I'm not mistaken, during the first week of April we had the tariff war from the US, and the market got so like it got hit by a plane or something. So everything went wild. Yeah. It went rogue.
It's a
Yeah.
nice way of putting it, yeah.
Yeah. So but I think one of the key point for me to stay profitable is to be patient, to be exact, to be patient. I remember I took like Euro USD and USD JPY during April, and I swung it through the whole April or May, right? Then yeah, I think I'm through those few positions I made like 12,000 if I'm not mistaken, and I've actually got my first payout from Darwinex on May itself. I think if I'm not mistaken, it was like 1,000 plus euro payout. Yeah.
Nice, congratulations. I mean, how much allocation did you have at that point? So that was May. You said 100K at that point in Darwinia?
Yeah, I think it was a silver 100K if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And so now that you're in gold, obviously the allocations are much bigger and they last for a lot longer. So hopefully your Darwinia allocations scale moving forward. I mean, your previous 6 months return, which is the highest, or previous 5 months return, which is the highest weighted um, metric within the calculation for rate. I'm talking rubbish. When you're in DarwinIA Gold, it's based on your current month's return. I was thinking because you mentioned silver then. So yeah, basically the way the ratings work in gold is the higher your current month return, the higher your ranking in gold. As long as you're positive, you should be pretty much getting allocation every month, I would presume. I mean, you're currently ranked 78th. Does it? It doesn't tell you unless it's yours, does it? But I was going to go back to your trades because we were talking about the assets that you were trading, right? So 41% of your trades come from trading FX, 33% from commodities, and 23% from indices. Your average holding time is 11 hours and 17 minutes for losing trades and 17 hours and 35 minutes for winning trades, which gives you a positive duration ratio of 1.56, which is important. Like, a lot of people overlook the importance of this statistic, having a positive duration ratio, because it essentially shows that you're willing to cut your losing trades quicker than you're willing to hold your winning trades, which as a swing trader is really important, right? Because you need to be able to hold your winners and not get shaken out every time that the market has a pullback, for example. So anyway, I'm really excited to see how you scale now that you're in DarwinIA Gold. And of course, now that you're in gold, you are open to investors as well. So this is really the time where, I mean, these next 6 months, July through to December, are really the months that count now. Like, if your performance is good, you're going to be earning allocations and investor capital. If your performance is still good, you're going to be getting paid. So I'm really, really excited to see how you scale right now. I want to talk a little bit more on your trading now. So we won't go into the strategy and the specifics, of how you execute, but what does a typical day look like to Simon? Like, how do you trade in the day? What do you do first thing when you wake up?
Right. So, uh, how do I actually prepare myself to the market? I usually I go through my watch list on maybe a weekend, like Saturday or Sunday, right? I'll just scan through the futures of the currencies, basically. Yeah, right.
Hmm.
Then I'll just weigh out like which currency is actually stronger than the other. Then I'll just look into those cross pairs. So if you look into my trading history, I trade currencies, the FX currencies. I trade the majors and also the minors. Yeah. So and then when I scan through my watch list, basically I'll just trim it down to maybe like last 3 or 4 pairs. Then I'll just place the key levels with the alerts on TradingView, right? Then I'll just wait for the alert to ring me. Once the alert is triggered, I'll just have my buy limit. I presume my buy limit and sell limit would be triggered together as well. Yeah.
Hmm.
So my
So,
screen time to the market is actually pretty low, right?
yeah.
Most of the time I'll just spend my screen time maybe like during the weekend and also maybe once in a while during the weekdays.
Yeah, just to monitor exposure and market movements as opposed to constantly feeling the need to execute, I guess.
Exactly.
And so how many markets do you actually watch and manage? Because I presume if you're looking for strength between different currency pairs, I'm presuming you watch more like the Dixie, the VIX, and all that sort of stuff. So how many markets do you actually monitor on a weekly basis?
Um, Actually, like no, I actually the futures of the currencies only, like if the symbol name is like the 6E1, like 6J1 in TradingView, it's basically the futures of like maybe the
Hmm.
pound or the yen. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't really look at the VIX. Yeah,
Okay, so you're literally just looking at currency strength, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Then I'll go back to the CFDs like the Euro USD or the USD JPY, and then I'll take my trades there.
Do you find there's much difference between the futures chart? Because this is an issue that I found in the past when trying to, because I trade primarily futures these days, but occasionally I'll have a CFD account where I'm, essentially taking the same positions. But because I'm analyzing on the futures chart, I'll then go to the CFD chart and I'm like, all of my levels are completely out of sync. Now I trust the futures chart way more. So I put, if there's a level on the futures, I will trade it on the CFD. But it's really difficult to look at the CFD chart and be like, there's not a setup there, but I'm taking it anyway because this other chart this other chart is telling me to do so. So do you find that's an issue at all, or is that kind of a non-starter? It doesn't really bother you?
Yeah, I actually agree with you. You know, like I actually trust the futures chart way more than the CFD charts, because CFD charts just gives me like more noise. If I'm
Hmm.
correct me if I'm wrong, right? But I think it's actually, I think being a swing trader is an advantage for me, and it actually fits my strategy well. It's because I trade mainly on the larger time frames, like the weekly, the monthly, maybe 2 months, and so on, right? So I'll just wait for the key levels. I'll just wait for the key levels. Like let's say I'm waiting for uh like the recently, like maybe like just yesterday, the euro futures chart has actually hit the weekly supply zone, right? Then when I switch to the euro USD weekly time frame, so I don't think it's a coincidence, but it just hit the weekly supply zone for CFD chart as well. Hence, I pulled the trigger on the euro USD short. Yeah. So the sequence would be, once the futures chart is present in the key levels, but it must be in a weekly or a monthly zone, then I'll actually switch it back to the CFD to check if they are in at least a daily or a weekly key zones level. Then I'll pull my trigger. But if they are not in the zone, then I'll just continue to monitor.
Okay. Have you noticed, is there a reason behind that? Like, have you noticed that if the CFD chart isn't also in a zone, it's less likely to play out, or is that just a routine that you've built, I don't know, for whatever reason?
Yeah, it's actually a, a a large compilation of data, to be honest. Like I've compiled these datas for maybe like 2 years, and I'm up till today I'm still compiling. So what the data tells me that is I actually have a better win rate. I'm I'm, I'm not trying to say higher win rate means more profit, but I actually have a higher win rate if I use this SOP, right? Like if I follow this procedure, like this standard of procedure, then it actually increase my um accuracy of my
Okay.
entry.
Yeah, your win rate overall. I mean, your win rate on your Darwin is 57.3%, and you also have a positive payoff ratio of 1.11. For anybody who is unaware, the payoff ratio is basically risk to reward, so how much reward you're getting for the risk. So you're positive on both ends, which is, of course, a recipe for success. You have a positive payoff ratio, so you're losing one on every loser, you're winning 1.11 on every winner, and you're winning more than you're losing. So, of course, that's kind of a match made in heaven. But it's interesting that you say that increases your win rate. I mean, like I say, the difference between the futures and the CFD charts is always something that's kind of I can only look at one or the other, but I just feel like a bit of a cheat if I'm looking at the CFD, because CFD charts are basically fabricated, right? And I don't mean that from a malicious standpoint, but you have liquidity providers, you have the brokers, you have all of these different entities pulling together to create that chart that it is prone to error or liquidity issues, whereas the futures chart is kind of widely accepted that that is the price, or that is the level, and that's why I always put a little bit more emphasis on that. So now I want to ask you, it's quite a broad question, but what I usually find is that when I ask people this, they give me one word or a very succinct answer. What do you think it takes to be a trader? I don't mean a specific strategy, as in the person. What does it take to be a trader?
Look, I think when I first started trading, right, I always, my mind was full of just going after profit, right? After a while, like after a year or so, like then I actually realized you have to be true to yourself, right? I think what your trading result shows is it's actually like a mirror of yourself. Like if you're if you're always losing, if you're always hitting your SLs, you're always entering before the price reaches your zone, right? Which it actually shows that maybe you're impatient, right? Or actually you're kind of a desperate person, right? So it actually helps me. Trading actually helps me to shape to be a better person. Like not to say like overall, but at least I'm much more patient right now. I actually, because before this I'm usually quite impatient. Like Even when my friends or colleagues speak to me, I'll just I'll just kind of ignore them. But right now, I can actually have my ears to them, and I can actually finish what they want to tell me. I can actually understand. I can actually you know have a, what do you call that, a compassion, right? So yeah, so trading, what actually trading actually teaches me, it's actually patience. Yeah.
Yeah, I think patience is probably the most underrated skill um, in life in general, but in trading, if you struggle to have patience, you will always be your own biggest obstacle. You'll always be the one who's getting in your own way. I think it's super, super important to, if you don't have patience, work on getting patience, because without it, you're gonna struggle. And I think it's really important that like you say at the beginning, where you was always thinking about the profit or where the next payout is coming from or the next account flip. When you think like that, your decision making is already skewed, because you have an end goal, and every decision that you make is going to be towards the end goal. Whereas if you put the goal a little bit further back and just say, I'm going to let this scale naturally, I'm going to make the best decision that is the best decision right now, um, then you'll probably excel a lot faster. But of course, you have to have patience. For example, if you have a target of 10% on your account and you're in a trade and you're up, I don't know, 2 or 3%, it's very easy to go, yeah, but if this continues and I hit 10%, I could pass this account today, or
Yeah.
whatever the reason may be. Instead, going, well, if I close this trade now, where I should, based on my technical analysis or based on daily ATR, whatever it may be, if I close this trade now, I'm 2% closer to my goal, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be a one hit wonder. I don't have to flip this account right now, but every little step over days, over weeks, over months, even years will stack up and eventually get me to my goal and way surpass my goal. So, yeah, I completely agree. I think every trader needs to have patience. And I think well, I don't think a trader would succeed without having patience. And talking of succeeding and talking of success, how does it feel to you to be a part of, I think there's 298 traders right now in DarwinIA Gold. We have roughly 10,000 traders in total, or 10,000 strategies in total. And there's only 298 of them in DarwinIA Gold, and you're one of them. How does that feel?
Well, when I first received the email from Darwinex, right, it tells me that I'm in goal. To be honest, I was at a beach, if I'm not mistaken, right? Then I had a sense of euphoria. To be honest, I'm like, because Raihan always tells us that goal is the main thing to go to. Goal is the main objective to be in the Darwinex, right? So I always have a curiosity, like, one day if I'm there, like, how would I feel? To be honest, I felt like cloud nine, right? Then what I think Darwinex has a sense of, like, what do you call that? Like, there's a magic in it, right? Because all the statistics, whatever you do, whatever little things you do in Darwinex account, it actually reflects on your dashboard. So you won't you like uh before I go into DarwinX, I will just actually basically, like, screw around, like, play with my positions. Like, I would just be impatient and just hop into a trade, or I'll just shift my stop loss to a closer to my entry price, setting B much more earlier than I should. Right. All these
Hmm.
all these little stuffs I actually get to correct it through my DarwinX process. Right. Through these eight
Yeah,
months, I
because you
think.
know that someone's watching.
Exactly. Like, all the little devils, right? They will actually pull it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like with all the statistics being reflected on my dashboard, I feel like I'm actually naked to the world, right? So
Mhm.
I just tell myself that, look, I just gotta keep my shit together, and I'll just do whatever I can to do my best.
Going back to my point where I said about having patience, it's about making the best decision in that moment. Like, even if it's a harder decision, closing a trade at a loss or not moving your stop to break even and fighting those devils that you was talking about, it might be the best decision in the moment. And when you know people are watching and people are assessing your performance, it is so imperative that you make the best decision in the moment. Even if you go, but I could make 10% on this trade. Is that the best decision in the moment? No. So let's figure out what is. Yeah, I also just checked. I mean, it was pretty simple maths, but my maths isn't my strong point. But it's the if you're in gold, you're in the top 2.98% of traders on Darwinex. So, we all know the statistics. I don't know how true the numbers are, but 90% fail, 95% fail, 80% fail. I don't know which number it is, but we know it's high. We know there's a lot of people who don't make it. And you're currently sat in the top 2.98%. So kudos to you, dude. That's like absolutely fantastic. And you should 100% be on cloud nine. You should 100% be proud of that. Just stay grounded, stay doing what you're doing, and continue the performance the way that you have. You can't let your behavior change because of a statistic. Even though you're in the top 3% or top 2.98%, it's business as usual. You do the same thing that you did yesterday because it's working right. I think a lot of people work towards a goal, and when they get that goal, they don't keep doing the things that got them to the goal. For example, journaling or whatever it may be. They'll journal until they hit a payout or they get an account or whatever it may be. And then they'll go, oh, well, I've achieved it now, so I'm not going to journal tomorrow. I don't need to. And then all of a sudden their performance goes and they go, I need to start journaling again. And they push back up. So it's about doing the same thing that you did yesterday. Okay. Are there any rules, parameters, or philosophies that guide your trading today?
Mm, I think I trade by a quote like consistency is the key, right? Everything you do, you gotta be consistent, right? Whether you're consistent in taking the same strategies, like having the same game plan, like risking at the same risk per trade, or everything you do, you just gotta be consistent. Like what you mentioned earlier, like if you are jumping from train A to train B to even to train C, right? From time to time, then I don't think you go far. Like maybe you can, like, let's say if you're trading like what's popular right now, what's trending now is the prop firms trading, right? Basically, let's say if you hit a 5-figure payout, but I don't think that's okay. If you manage to hit it, congrats, of course. But but my question is, how do you actually consistently doing it from like maybe from month 1 to month 2 to month 6, or maybe like 2 years, 3 years? Can you actually do it consistently? If you can, right? Congrats. I think you've unlocked yourself the holy grail for you, right? But if you can't do it consistently, then it's just gonna be a one-hit wonder, and I don't want it. I don't want a one-hit wonder. So yeah, I think I trade by that. I trade by the consistency is the key.
One of my favorite quotes actually is about consistency, and it's a Bruce Lee quote which you probably know. It's a really, really famous quote. It's, I fear not the man who's practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who's practiced one kick 10,000 times. And it's about that consistency and just doing the same thing again and again until you become a master of it, as opposed to whether we relate it to strategies or trades or anything in life, trying to do everything, you'll become a master of nothing. And it's actually one of my favorite quotes, which is, super, super close to the philosophy that guides your trading in terms of consistency. So with that, of course, we know that trading induces a lot of emotional discomfort. When you're guided by this, I have to be consistent. I have to, focus on the process and do the right things. How do you manage your emotions? Like when that starts creeping in and it battles with your philosophy, how do you overcome that?
I'm not sure if I saw this how long ago, but I saw this one article writing that it's not how it's not to be a great trader, right? It's not how much actually do you make, or how much money do you make, but it's or when you're in a profit, right? That's pointless. But what makes a great trader is when you're in a drawdown, right? How do you actually come out from a drawdown and come back to your break-even level, right? I think that actually hits me pretty hard. It's because like um, we can actually relate this to doing business in real world, right? So when you're doing business, it's not all sunny days or all sunny days or rainbows through the year, right? So you will have some drawdowns, some losses throughout the months. So in when we shift it back to trading, it's the same, right? When we have drawdowns, actually, how do you actually deal with drawdowns is actually one of the key mindset to me, right? It's because like I still can remember because when I trade Darwinex silvers, I also have like my personal account. That was like a 50k fund my personal account, right? So it actually went into a drawdown compared to my Darwinex. So I began questioning myself like what's happening to my trades? Are my trades quality enough or more so? But then I actually sat back and I just tell myself like, why is my Darwinex actually performing much more better, even though I'm pulling much lesser trades compared to my personal account, right? So what I found is actually just taking quality setups. We don't need so many unnecessary setups or like the feeling of having FOMO or just to chasing more profits. So that's actually that's actually a turning point for me. Like to understand that oh look, to be in a drawdown is actually completely normal. Just to relate back what I mentioned earlier, to be consistent in doing everything, right? How I actually treat my DarwinX account, I'll also treat it the same to my personal account. So I realized that as long as I keep doing what's proven right, right? I take the same strategies. I use the same risk amount, etc. and etc. Um, it's just a matter of time when I actually can come back from a drawdown. I remember my personal account was drawdown of 7%, right? 7%. But it took me like nearly like nearly 2 months to actually come back to the break-even level, right? It's not a matter. It's not like how long I can actually come back from it. It's just a matter of whether if I come back from it, and I'm proud to say I've did it. So it actually builds a great fortitude of mind to me.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love that. And especially because, as again, another famous quote, right, is less is more. And I think that's especially relevant in this industry is that a lot of traders will search for more setups, more strategies, more exposure when in actual fact they would probably benefit by reducing a lot. And I cover this a lot in our strategy development sessions that I run every Wednesday with the Darwinex community, where I go through statistically proven times and assets and whatever variable I can find that has a statistical provability or a statistical backing, let's say, where this trader should stop doing something. So, for example, we have traders who, a specific day of the week, they just underperform, and I'm not talking over 1, 2 weeks, I'm talking over 6, 12, 24 months, 10 years, for example. Or they might have a specific asset that they just can't get to grips with. And I always say to them, like, why keep doing it? If you've proven that over a 2-year period, you lose on Aussie Swiss 70% of the time and you just keep hemorrhaging money, but on Aussie dollar and I don't know, USD Swiss, you're killing it and you're making a positive return. Why add the extra stress, extra risk exposure, extra decision making, all of these different things? Why add it? There's no point because statistically, you're going to continue in this path. The best example of this, which I only found out recently, but I feel like I talk about it every day to whoever I'm talking to, is THA. I'm sure you're aware THA. He's our most
yeah,
capitalized Darwin at Darwinex. He has a 10-year long track record, right? And people always think I'm talking a bit of fugazi when I'm talking about certain metrics and certain variables that affect your trading. If you look at his return distribution by day of the week, You have Thursday, which is the highest at 225%. The rest of the days are like 50 to 80%. So there's a big difference there. But on Mondays, over 10 years, so this is a decade of trading, he's down almost 9%. So he's never made money on a Monday. Now you go, well, this is a guy who's been trading for 10 years, well, longer than 10 years. His record with Darwinex is 10 years. He's managing, $22.5 million in AUM from real investor capital. He's done all of these. He's won 3 Hedge Fund Journal CTA awards. Like, he's done everything. He's got the accreditation, but he's a losing trader on a Monday. It doesn't make sense, and so you have to find where your edge is more present, because I can promise you it's not there every day of the week on every asset, on every time frame. It's not fractal 100%. And THA is the perfect example of that. Now, in his case, less would be more. If you stop trading on Monday, less is more, because you'd actually be, you wouldn't have that 9% down. Now, it's easy to say that in hindsight, but any trader can find these small variables that they can take advantage of. And like you say, focusing on A-star quality setups is absolutely key. And finding little variables that help you get those setups is a game changer. Anyway, I'm gonna stop rambling on about that now. So we're gonna start winding the interview down in a second. So I want to focus on a couple of questions that I've got to finish off the session. So what are your longer term goals now as a trader? Where do you see yourself in 5 years as an asset manager?
Well, I've actually always dreamed about this. I mean, I've actually I'm not sure if you guys believe it or not. I have actually a roadmap written in my something like a notebook, right? So when I first started my journey with Darwinex, then I actually wrote it to myself like, okay, I'll score the gold status in 9 months. And wow, I'm not sure if it's a miracle or something. I actually hit it in 8 months. So and my next target will be achieving 1 million AUM in 2026, right? So it's maybe like half a year now. Let's see what my performance shows to the investors, right? So my short-term game plan would be a 1 million invested amount from the investors. Then from there onwards, I'll aim for 5 million at least, like within 2 years.
Okay, let me check Darwinex.com. Not a lot of our traders know that we actually measure this, but if you check your Darwin on Darwinex.com, I'll share my screen so that you guys can see. Yeah, if you go into Darwinex.com, you have to log in. So if you don't have an account with Darwinex.com, you can use your Darwinex Zero credentials. Then you just go Darwinex.com/Darwin/your Darwin. So your 4-ticker Darwin, and then put a hashtag at the end, and it'll bring up your Darwinex Zero Darwin on here as well, where there's a few more metrics that you can take a look at. So we actually measure your capacity, which is your alpha cap, or your max investment as a trader. And the way we do that is we measure the toxicity flow of your orders coming through the exchange. And then we measure what the divergence would be based on that toxicity flow between you and an investor, depending on how many pips slippage that they would get per trade. And that then gives us a rough estimate of how much capital you could manage as a trader. Of course, we then cap off your Darwin to investors at that point, because they're going to be getting different results. So right now, well, this was Monday, June the 30th. It updates every Monday. Your Darwin was up 23.93%. If an investor was getting slipped by 2 pips on every trade, they'd be up 2.76%. So that's quite a big divergence. So of course, like, we have to measure that, because if we're advertising your Darwin to investors and saying, come and invest in our IUJE, he's done 24%, but an investor would only be up 3%. Obviously, that's, it's our business on the line, so we have to protect our investors. I'm not sure what this spike is. I'm not sure if you changed something, or whether the system recalibrated, or whether we had an LP change or something like that that's allowed more investment to come through. But beforehand, you were sat about 1.5 million max investment. Now you're sat about 20 million. So that's basically saying that you can take 20 million AUM before your system begins to be drained, if that makes sense. I need to find out why there was such a spike. Because it could be anything. It could be anything that's caused that change. But because it's quite sudden, I want to check. But either way, 1.5 million, you can smash your first goal. 20 million. I mean, let's see if you can get to 20 mil over the next 10 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always an interesting statistic to look at, you know, and the reason being is because a lot of traders don't actually realize how unscalable their strategy is. They might have hopes and dreams of becoming a $100 million trader, but their max capacity is 100 grand because they're scalping with a 2-pip stop, you know, and that's really, really not scalable sort of thing. So I just wanted to show that because it was in line with what your sort of long-term goals are. Now, lastly, I'm going to ask you a question that I ask every single person. If you had one piece of advice to give to a new trader who was starting right now, what would your advice be? And we can't have patience because you've already said patience a couple of times. So I want a
Yeah.
bit of practical advice.
To the beginners, stop looking for the holy grail technique, I would say. Yeah, do it. Like, you gotta do your work, man. You gotta do your work. Like, put in the efforts. Like, trading is not a get rich quick scheme, I would say. Many would think that trading you can get your Ferraris, your Lambos, your Rolex over a short night, right? But it doesn't, right? You gotta put in your effort. You gotta put much more dedication compared to the others. Like what Kieran mentioned just now. Like you can actually see the risk disclaimer on any broker's website, right? They will say like 90% or 80%, whatever, right? Those are actually the failed traders or the losing traders. So do you want to be part of them, or do you want to be different from them, right? So it's you yourself who actually are you willing to put in the work, right? If you're ready to put in the work, make sure you do it right. Do it. You start right, then focus on the process, not the result. Yeah, you go there. You get to there someday. I'm not sure when, but someday you'll be there. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree with that. You find somebody who can guide you, you focus on the process, and just focus on continuous improvement instead of the end goal. Again, Lambos, Rolexes, Ferraris, they might be what brought you to the industry, but generally, 99.99% of traders and even successful traders that I know don't drive a Lamborghini. Simple fact. The majority of them get on the tube into London. That's the top and bottom of it. You know, they don't have time enough to drive a Lamborghini, and that's just a simple fact. So you have to manage your expectations. But Simon, I just want to say a massive thank you for coming on the Zero Edge today. It's been a pleasure to hear your thoughts and hear your story, and I'm sure a lot of people will take value from it. I will put a link down to. Have you got any social media profiles?
I have my ex.
Okay. I will put a link to Simon's X account in the description so that you can go and follow him if you want to hear more about his story. So before we finish, is there anything final that you want to say?
Yeah. Thank you for having me, Kieran. And yeah, not. I don't think there's anything. Oh yeah, maybe like credits to Raihan and to Darwinex as well. Darwinex is. I think it's a great platform to shape me to shape who I am today compared to maybe 1 year ago, right? And special thanks to Wei Xing, my mentor, as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Sounds good. I appreciate the kind words, dude. You have a fantastic rest of your day. And guys, thank you all for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll see you in the next episode.